darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize y'all's neighborhood.
Woo! Kingdom Death Monster, baby!
Hold me, Chris.
So, Kingdom Death Monster. This is our first podcast where we're not going to be discussing Guild Ball. Instead, we have found a new game, a game that I've been excited about for a long time, and we finally were able to break it out.
So those of you that are listening to this because you're Kingdom Death Monster folks, my name's Pete. I play a lot of tabletop games, but Chris hooked me into Kingdom Death Monster. So Chris is the jolly good fellow who's leading us in this terror-filled world. So it was fucking nuts, dude.
Yeah, I was really surprised. It's the first time we've been able to play, and I loved the mechanics of the game. I loved the backstory in the game. It was really, really dynamic, and I was shocked. I've heard so many people talk about it, and I really kind of built it up and hyped it up a lot. And now we've been able to finally put it on the table.
So Chris kind of came to me about this Kingdom Death idea, and
What?
Anyways, he heard about it on the Kickstarter when it first got announced, right? And you missed the boat on it.
Actually, so there was a first Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And that's one where I never even heard about it. I didn't know about it. Believe me, I would have backed it back then. But I missed it on the first Kickstarter. And then last year, around Black Friday, so right around this time of year, another Kickstarter was announced. And this time, a friend gave me a heads up. Another friend that I know, his name's Patrick. He lives out in Salt Lake City. And he's part of a gaming group that I used to be a part of out there. And he told me, hey, you got to check out this game. It's really cool. Me and my friends have played version 1. They're doing a version 1.5. You should check it out. And so I jumped on it.
So I'm kind of glad I went into this game the way I did, because you kind of just told me about it. You gave me some of, kind of the feel of it. You almost pitched it to me like this Dante Inferno kind of deal, which I'm a big fan of. I love the Divine Comedy. And I'm glad I came into it without researching it a lot and reading a lot about it, because I felt like when we cracked open the book and we started reading the prologue, I felt like I was really part of that story, because when you go into it, you're just waking up to this new world and your eyes are like barely kind of, cracking open, and you got this black goo on your face and you're reaching around for whatever you can feel. So I really felt like one of those, survivors that didn't know what was going on and didn't know what this world was about. So I really think that it was cool that most of us came into the game like that.
Yeah, the game, as it's been explained to me when I first got hooked on it, or hyped on it, let's put it that way.
Yeah, because you hadn't played it.
I hadn't played it, was that it was a very challenging game. And we'll get into this a little bit more, but just so all of you know, if you haven't played yet, expect to die a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that you're like, yeah, don't get too attached to your characters. And I was like, okay, what's going to happen to us?
Yeah, I know a lot of times with people that come from a role-playing D&D type world,
they get attached.
They create a character, they love that character, they name it something special to them. And in this game, those first characters, they're going to be gone in a hurry. And so I did give everyone that heads up. The thing that I really... Well, let's just kind of start diving into it. And I guess we have to be a little bit careful, because part of the aura of this game is
not knowing.
Yeah, there is some mystery. So we won't really ruin it for anyone, but we will kind of get into some of the mechanics of the game. So what were some of your thoughts when you first started playing, rolling the die, experiencing the games?
So it was kind of interesting because the prologue leads you through a first battle. So it's going to show you how the mechanics work, which I thought was really intelligent. And it was almost like story time, right? We had you and Matt specifically reading through this amazing book, and the graphics and the art in this book is just stupendous. Like, sometimes it's kind of pornographic, and definitely very gory.
So we're not gonna play it with like some kids. It's not gonna be a family friendly
I mean,
board game.
This chick's boobs hanging out, so yeah, we're not. This is definitely not gonna be adolescent friendly.
Adolescents are growing up more and more every year.
I guess. Yeah, let's not blame it on TV.
Adolescents probably would love to get their hands on this game.
Anyways,
they won't be able to though, because adolescents probably can't afford this game.
That's for sure. So as you kind of started reading through it, you're like, okay, and you come across this creature, and I think most people have seen that it's the white lion. I mean, we haven't gotten into any more monsters, so I think we're safe though talking about the prologue creature.
Yeah.
So,
and what we'll do, just to give everyone a heads up and give you kind of a little bit of a spoiler, we're new to this game and we're trying not to look way ahead. And so hopefully for those that are listening to the podcast and are going to come back to listening to the podcast and are going to hear us rage quit and get frustrated and all of that, you're working through this game the same way. And so as we talk about it, we're going to try to not reveal what every decision is, but we are going to try to talk about a basic line of maybe the monsters that we fight and some general techniques without getting into real specifics.
When we posted the pictures from our game yesterday, I mean, we did get some pretty cool feedback from some people that had some similar experiences. And I mean, they didn't give anything away. They were just like, hey, here's something we tried with similar monsters. So I thought it was cool just to get some of that feedback. And I think that would almost be like in this world, if you go out and you explore and there's another settlement, maybe you're exchanging information with those other settlements. So that's kind of how I viewed it.
We're like breaking that. The fourth wall exists in our world too. Definitely. Wow, okay.
So the prologue was pretty cool because it teaches you basically how to play. You use your founding stone to basically attack, and unfortunately my character doesn't have his founding stone anymore, or her founding stone anymore, because I chucked it for one of them sexy crit hits.
Yeah, those founding stones, man, those are like some super weapons that you get right away, and you have to be tempted not to just blow them early.
So something that these dice can screw you over. That's one thing I definitely learned from this, because it's a D10, and then you have these random, like, where you're getting wounded dice. So if you get unlucky, first off, with the positioning of the wounds, you can start taking wounds in the same spot, and then you get these major wounds. And then as we discovered, when you take a major wound and you have to roll on basically this crit damage table, which is called something, I don't know what it was called.
Severe injuries.
Yeah, severe injury. If you roll a 1 or a 2 on any of those, you're pretty much dead. So you have a 20% chance of dying if you get some kind of major injury. Somebody could have died.
Somebody did.
A lot of people died.
So, I want to actually talk about these die, or these dice, I should say. They're really cool. I really like what came in the box. The game is primarily based on a D10 system, and so they've got these basic D10s, and the 10 is a lantern. That lantern motif has been a key to the story and really focused on the idea of light and darkness.
Well, I was going to say, I like the symbolism behind it, because you're in this dark world and you're just drawn to this light that's going to, shine this hope and shine this life that you're trying to bring into this world. So I like the symbolism going on there.
Well, and I think there's also this greater symbolism even of not only hope, like you said, but also the world that we encounter, our unknowns in life. Yeah, and so there's almost a reason why this game resonates with people, is I think that people feel this attachment to the symbolisms.
And I think that if we had one of those badass lanterns, Joe wouldn't have let us into a crater.
I know. That guy,
what a jerk.
Freaking Joe.
We'll talk about that when we get to the hunt phase. Because I think we can break this down into the 3 different phases that we did.
Yeah, so, and then the other die that you get is this one that is a 6-sided die, and it's got a head, a torso, legs, a waist, and hands. Actually, so there's 2 torso sides. So you've got about a 30% chance of hitting your torso on
Getting
any
your
given.
chest split open.
So that's good to know. Be aware of that when you're picking armor. Your torso can take some more hits, and so or more often takes hits. So I like that the die that came in this aren't just the same old die that
Like
you see
D6s.
everywhere. Yeah, I think that would be boring. And even the D10s, which are relatively uncommon. I mean, most of the time when you play games, you're seeing things like D20s, D12s.
D10s you see a lot in RPGs, and I can speak to this because I think I've played more RPG games.
Oh, definitely.
D10s usually you use for percentiles, or you use them for usually like charts that you have based off of hundreds. So like you pick one to be the 10 side and one to be the single digit side. And when you roll them, whatever you roll, it could be 28 all the way up to 100. So it's helped for those huge randomizations that you have in RPGs.
And one thing that you don't know about this, but I watched it closely, during the Kickstarter, they had this thing called the Gambler's Chest. And so if you pledged to get the Gambler's Chest, it was basically this box of 20 items that as they hit certain marks in the Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter made a ton of money, but as they hit every $100,000 or whatever it was, or $200,000, every time they went past another threshold, they rolled D10s, 2 D10s, to figure out a 1 to 100 scale what they were going to reveal within that box.
And you can definitely tell that this is a popular game and that the Kickstarter was successful because this book is extremely well bound. The cover is amazing. The art, the paper quality is amazing. This is a really clean book and board, and I know Chris had us wash our hands a few times while we were playing the game yesterday.
Yeah, and our other friend Chris, he needs to not be eating chips at the table.
Yeah, I got a drink that's dangerously close to the board.
I know.
And I know you're eyeing it.
Yeah, like a hawk. But and that brings up actually another thing. So I want to focus on a lot of these early elements that got me into the game and things that I think people should know. Because I know a lot of people are going to be listening to this that don't have their game yet. Take some time, get some sleeves for all of your stuff.
Yes.
You're going to need to sleeve probably 300 cards, and the cards are a little bit odd in their size. I think
they're not common.
Yeah, I think that the sleeves that I got, I would have to look, but I think they're 56 or 57 millimeter by 87 millimeter.
Yeah, really odd numbers.
And then they have 2x2 cards, 2x2 inch cards that are 52 or 53 by 52 or 53 millimeter squares. And then they also have some that are like these odd, almost postcard size. So I'm actually waiting to get some more sleeves. And that's one reason why I said, listen, you guys got to be careful with this game because I don't want it ruined.
So getting back to the prologue, though, I think that it does a really good job of teaching you how the monster operates, how you operate around the monster.
While you're in the story.
While you're in the story, and it doesn't overcomplicate it. There's things you're not going to know, but you don't necessarily need to know them till later. And one thing I would suggest, though, and I think we should have done this a little better, is I would recommend to a new group that gets this, I would pick one person to actually learn how it works. So I would pick one person that's like, reads through it, maybe even practices a couple times by themselves, just to figure out how the prologue works. So that way, if there's any questions the group has, it's easier to answer them. I felt like there's a couple times yesterday where we had to kind of pause and, we're all kind of like, well, we're anxious to play. So I think it's good to have one person that knows it in and out.
And I actually did read through the rules, but what I didn't do is I didn't get all the cards in order that I needed beforehand. And so definitely take the time to do that. That was a mistake on my part. And I also don't think that I'm great as far as being able to read the rules and look at them in text and then translate them into the experience. There are other people in our game group that do that better.
Well, there's also just some questions that you're not going to be able to answer until they come up. Like, there was something where it's like we got, what was it? It was something in relation to, I think it was the hit boxes, like the minor and major damage. And we're like, oh, when do we roll on this chart? Is it, when we take the box, or is it after the box? So there's just a couple times we had to look up stuff like that just to make sure we were playing it right.
Yeah, and I do like that prologue story and that prologue rule set says, hey, listen, we know you're going to mess up some of these rules in the prologue. You can get the rules down perfectly in the future as you go, but we just want to get you playing. And I thought that was really cool, a really nice feature. It's obviously a game that's designed by gamers and by people that want that sort of experience. And so, great experience, and we need to dive more into the rules. I was a little bit afraid to look too far into them because I just didn't want to ruin anything.
Yeah. And something else I would recommend for new groups is that there are tokens for the monsters, like for its movement and its toughness and its speed and its damage. I would take those out for every monster because there's cards that modify those. So it's easier as a player to keep track of that when you have them down on the board. And there's a special spot for them, so there's no reason not to use them. Yep. But I noticed the second time we fought a monster, we were a little sloppier with that. We didn't put that down. It's probably because, I don't know, there was just a different person.
And it is a lot to manage.
It is.
There's a lot to think about, but I didn't think that there was so much to think about that it was something that would dissuade people from playing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of games, a lot of tabletop games that are so complicated that a lot of people are discouraged right away. But this one, I felt like it had enough complexity to engage the player, but at the same time not dissuade a player from wanting to play. I also like that this game does have an element where you can play single player. I obviously want to play with my group of friends, but it would be nice to be able to play ahead and do things like the prologue before you.
And it's interesting that you say that, because since you could play by yourself, because with the AI deck, the monster does have a mind of its own. You're not able to predict what the monster is going to do. So it really does have this feel of like you could play by yourself and have a pretty good time with it, because you're interacting with a random mechanic in the game, and the monster is acting on its own.
Maybe that's what I need to do over Thanksgiving break when you guys all just leave, and I'm just going to be lonely.
Single and lonely. With all the other single people.
I know, for real.
I wish I was staying home, man.
Instead, you got a nice drive to New York.
Yeah, I got a truck up to New York. Yeah, those of you that are Kingdom of Death Monster and haven't listened to us yet, we're based out of South Carolina. So, yeah, I got to drive a while.
Little backstory.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get into the prologue. We start fighting this monster. We basically have to roll to hit and then wound the monster. And the 4 survivors that we took are each taking their turn, and then the monster gets its turn to pull from the AI deck and hit us back.
I tell you what, I was surprised how hard it was to wound the monster. Like, it makes sense because we're in loincloths, so I understand that. But I was like, man, how are we going to kill a fucking lion?
You know what I thought?
With our bare hands.
That's true. You know what I thought at the beginning?
A Herculean task, some would say.
Some would say that. But the thing that I thought is, basically, this is the, prime state of human beings. That very early human being that doesn't have any sort of technology.
Neanderthal-looking motherfuckers.
Exactly. Just the one step removed from Neanderthal. Okay. And I thought to myself, as we were playing, I thought, how the fuck did we survive as human beings against these other animals that are in the world? Because, we are very frail in comparison.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to get into that. There are different viewpoints, and I don't want to ruffle.
Well, yeah, we don't want to get into like an anthropology discussion. But
anyways,
I thought of that as we were playing, because they do make it to where that lion is tough and is going to beat you up, and those survivors individually are not.
So we got to the prologue here, and one of the this freaking artwork's amazing. Yeah, and it says the people were no match for the monster, it tore their flesh and swallowed them whole, and it's just like. And we gotta kill that thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
I guess here we go.
We do. So, we play through the prologue, we beat the monster, we don't lose anyone, although Clay lost an eye.
Yeah, he did. He did, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got bashed in the skull, and that's when we decided that, hey, we gotta build a helmet for this guy.
So, we end the prologue.
So then it goes into the settlement phase.
It goes into the settlement phase. And so basically the first part is just kind of teaching us how to set up the settlement.
This was the part of the game, Chris, that surprised me the most. Because I was anticipating as hey, you fight this monster, go ahead, set up, knock it down, bring the next one on. I had no idea about this settlement phase, and I'm like, oh, like we get to build our own little secret lair.
Yes. And because Clay and are playing, we named our settlement the Salt Mine.
Yes, it was named the Salt Mine.
Because we're so salty.
After Rage Quit Wire.
So we go into the settlement phase, and I know that I've heard from a lot of people, and I imagine you might start feeling the same way. The settlement phase is where a lot of the fun happens, where a lot of the choices happen.
I think that the people that like those kind of games will love this. Like, even World of Warcraft back in the day, like about 2 or 3 years ago. No, I guess it was 3 years ago. Anyways, the Draenor expansion they actually had like a home base you could build just because people love that function in games where they can build up, they can build their own, stores, they can build armories, they can build, castles. Fable 3, I think, was that way too. I don't know if you played Fable.
The one that I think of is Age of Empires.
Age of Empires, definitely. I mean,
where you could level up the buildings and create new things. And that's what I get the sense of that we're going to be doing in this.
And it was really cool because it's like, yeah, let's build this, man. Because we got some loot off the lion, and I was like, oh, I got this rotting organ that I can eat, I guess, and get parasites. That's great. And then we found out we can actually use it to build stuff.
Yeah, that was really funny. When Pete first got the loot and saw the organs and the bones and these types of things, he's like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? And then we end up going to the settlement phase, and we have like a bone smith where we can make weapons out of the bones and that sort of stuff, which was really, really cool. So we go through the settlement phase, we start building some stuff. This is where, as a group, you're making decisions. How do you want to go about this? Do you want to get more armor? Do you want to get more weapons?
I felt like you were more philosophical and thoughtful about this than the rest of us. Like, you were trying to think long term, and we're like, nah, fuck that, man. Let's get us some Bonesmith action. And you're like, no, let's try to get a savior. I'm like, listen, we can get Jesus later. Let's focus on, getting some armor and stuff,
Yeah, and that's something that also comes into play, and I've gotten that advice from other people, is procreate early and often. If you don't have enough people, you will lose.
Yeah, I did flub that roll. So you got to roll randomly to decide how big your settlement's going to be. And I rolled like a 2. And Chris is like, well, that's like the worst thing you could possibly roll.
Now we are fucked.
Now we have 10 people.
So we ended up getting our new people. And at this point, we had 6 people sitting around the table. And we decided, all right, in the next showdown, we're going to tag out a couple people, and we're going to tag in 2 others. And so now I know for some of you listening, you're going to say, well, there are rules in the back that allow you to play 6-player. But we intentionally decided not to do that because playing 6-player in Kingdom Death is brutal. I did get a little bit of heads up and did ask a little bit about that. And from what I hear, unless you're really experienced players, playing 6-player means the monsters are going to hit so much harder that you almost can't beat them.
So for you board game folks out there, if you're really good at hard games like Pandemic, because Pandemic is very teamwork oriented, maybe you can then swing a 6-man, game of Kingdom of Death. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a Pandemic guy. I'm kind of a casual board game, tabletop, GM, or RPG kind of guy.
Okay.
So with me, I'm like, yeah, 4 is probably better because you saw what I did out there. I'm the wild card. I do my own thing.
Yeah, well, we go into our next...
Let's go. Okay, so we're in the settlement phase.
Listen, I'm going to rage on you. No.
We'll get to... You probably will.
I probably will. But, so we go through the settlement phase. We start going out. We load up our guys. We get our gear. Our buddy Clay, who went blind, he gets a skull helm that is supposed to protect his head because we don't need him going blind the other way.
It protected him once.
But we were idiots because we gave him the weapons, thinking like, hey, he can go out and attack.
But his accuracy went down.
His accuracy went down because he was blind in one eye. So we were just morons.
You gotta be careful of that.
So he got his helmet, but it couldn't hit for the life of him. So
yeah,
we go through the settlement phase, and then we start the hunt phase. And the hunt is finding the next monster.
Listen, I feel like this is the trap phase. I feel like as a group, this is where you need to make smart decisions, because I feel like in this phase we made some poor decisions and mistakes were made.
There were, specifically by Joe.
Yeah, and I think he meant well, because he was like, yeah, Ranger all the way. and it led us into, not our doom, we were okay, but...
some consequences that affected...
We got some brain damage from that.
Yes, we did. So
I became very secretive with my disorder. I wasn't allowed to share things with a group.
well, now you're dead, so does it matter?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why when you guys were like, "Oh, which disorder did you get?" I'm like, "Fuck you! I'm not telling you. Get off. That's my card."
So what I get the impression of is the settlement phase is where you get to make a lot of these choices that build your community, and then when you go into the hunt phase, you get a lot of choices that explore the world.
Well, I feel like the hunt phase is kind of like those early nomadic years of humans where it's like you're in a very dangerous world, and if you aren't careful, there's going to be some very unfriendly things that are going to come your way.
Yeah. And so I get the impression
Which I feel
that,
like we're being hunted and we're not hunting.
I definitely feel that. I feel like there's a lot of things in those hunt events where you're going to want that risk and reward of exploring, but you need to temper that somewhat and only take on so much risk because everything in this place wants to kill you.
That's for sure, man.
And so just be aware of that. I've also heard from friends that there are other times where if you pick wrong and you decide to just turtle in and not explore anything, you can get jammed up that way too. So, damn you, Adam Boots!
Well, because I think you have to find resources. Like, you have to expand. It's like any kind of civilization where if you just try to sit on what you got, I mean, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to naturally run out of resources or you're going to become a prime target for somebody else to come in and, take your shit.
Yeah, I agree. So we go through this hunt phase, there are various steps, and we finally get to the showdown, and we end up fighting another white lion, but this one is tougher. This is a level 1 white lion as opposed to a prologue.
And we definitely noticed the difference. The toughness went up. I think everything might have been the same except for the toughness.
No, the AI deck expands, so
does
we have
it?
to put in more attacks and things like that. So what this game does is it's really cool because you construct an AI deck based on certain features. So you pick cards, and I think that it's A, B, C, for instance, and it tells you need this many A's, so maybe 7 A's and 3 B's, for example. And depending on what types of cards got picked, you shuffle it into a deck, and then the monster, when it attacks, it draws one of those cards during the monster turn. So you don't know what's coming, although there is a little bit of a process of elimination, so you can start predicting it as you whittle down the deck. But as you wound the monster, you take these cards out of that AI rotation, and those symbolize the wound. So obviously the bigger deck, the harder it is to kill this monster because you have to wound it more, and the more options the monster has with its attacks.
Yeah, and this one was definitely challenging. First off, we played it wrong. So literally, we played one of the mechanics wrong, and that ended up costing us. And then we also didn't go into it with a plan. We kind of just did our own thing.
Oh yeah, you did. Let's tell everyone listening what Pete decided to do with our group.
So I didn't tell the group to do anything, first off.
Yeah,
so,
you just decided to go rogue.
So what they decided to do is they're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go attack the monster from behind while somebody, I think was it Joe or you?
One of us.
It was one of you, went to, there was a carcass there and we were going to go explore it, right? Try to find some goodies off of it.
By the way, you can only explore that once. Yeah. We repeatedly explored it.
Which wasted turns while we were getting mauled by a lion. So while they were doing that, I guess they assumed I was going to attack the lion. I did. Yeah, because
this was like a cooperative game.
Well, I had a bone sword.
We gave you a big weapon.
Listen, I feel like that this game is very, socialist driven, and I feel like it's for the good of the community. Well, you want to know what? I like doing stuff for Pete sometimes. So you want to know what Pete did? I wasn't sure what the lion was going to do, so I decided to hide in the grass for a turn. So I just sit there with my bone sword, just kind of observing to see what this lion's going to do.
Jackass.
Dude, to be fair, in the prologue, I got messed up pretty good. So I had some traumatic experience in that prologue, and I'm just I'm gonna kind of sit back for a second and figure out.
Well, then why did we give you a sword?
Because I like to defend myself
in the tall grass.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, that lion came near me.
Oh, this is ridiculous. So anyway, basically we fought this lion, and eventually, one by one, as we're rolling severe wounds, and the lion is doing more damage to us.
Well, I felt like also we were hitting the lion a lot, And we ran into some problems, and this game created some very interesting problems. First off, his toughness went up, so he was harder to wound. That was a problem. We didn't have enough weapons to deal with that, I don't think. Secondly, there's this stupid card in there called a trap card. And if you don't know what a trap card is, just know it ruins your day. Because the lion apparently outsmarts you, like Tony the Tiger or some shit, which is, I get it's not a lion, but whatever. And don't make fun of my whatever. Anyways. So I got 2 hits on this stupid lion, so I'm like, yeah, I'm finally in there. I feel like, I'm Michonne it or something. And then all of a sudden, trap card, cancel all your hits, do the trap. And I'm just like, but I hit him twice. I was doing things now.
I guess you did. It's a trap game.
Trap game's for real, man.
It is. So, one by one, we end up falling. And it was frustrating because we only had like 2 cards left in the thing, which I just could only think, man, if only Pete participated.
Well, it wasn't only even that though, but we wasted like 3 turns going through that carcass. Like there was at least 2 people always searching through that.
Yeah, there was
a mistake
a lot of waste.
For sure.
Yeah. So, what are some things that are your thoughts? Because we have to go fight this fucking lion again, maybe in a week. So what are we gonna do? What do you think are some recommendations?
So luckily, when the 4 survivors died, apparently there was a scout that got our gear, so we didn't lose that.
Yes, thank goodness.
If we lost that gear, we might be hurting.
The gear is like more valuable than the humans that are in the gear.
Well, yeah, because the humans are essentially replaceable, and with all the insanity you can get and all the disorders and all the wounds, I think that's probably a fair statement.
Yeah.
So, going into this, we got to fight this thing again. Obviously, got to use what we have a little better. I think when we started getting some of those wounds, we should have used the terrain a little bit better because there was the grass and there was the cover. And I feel like we didn't use... I used it kind of just to be an asshole, but, you actually could use, like, Clay... and Joe, once Joe got mauled, he probably should have booked it for that grass until... And maybe we should have brought a med pack or whatever it was called, because I knew
bandages, I think.
Yeah, it was bandages. And I don't know what the in-game effect of those are, because we didn't get to that. But, like you said, almost like tanking somebody up with all this gear, maybe 1 or 2 people, and then having these supports, so maybe one with the bandages and something else, maybe one trying to lure the lion, like being in its field of view at all times and trying to get it to lure it that way.
I kind of feel like you have 2 options and maybe a combination of them. You can either go hard in your defensive gear, try to protect yourself, or you can go hard in your offensive gear.
I feel like early on, though, you can't afford to be defensive. I think if you go defensive, you're not going to be able to wound the lion.
I kind of wonder if we should maybe do something with one survivor, that we give one survivor a bunch of defensive gear.
Well,
and
the problem, though, is so early on, you don't have enough resources to do that, though. You have to pretty much decide one way or the other.
Well, I know we got to make some of those fucking headbands.
Headbands?
Yeah, it gives us, like, evasion or something. I don't know. And there's one...
Like Rambo?
I don't know, but it's... I've heard that you want those rawhide headbands, and there's also
I'm just trying to imagine, I see in, like Rambo, like when he's like tying it on and he's getting all hardcore and stuff. And I understand that looks cool, like Sylvester Stallone's a badass, but how is that going to help protect your noggin from a freaking lion?
I don't know, but I've heard there's some things that help you like predict the AI deck, where you're able to look at the first card on the AI deck or things like that. So,
like we get a psychic person in the group?
Yeah, something like that. So I don't know all the details of it because obviously we haven't done that yet, and I'm just hearing through the grapevine because we got on Facebook right after and posted our game, and there were also people that interjected.
And we also posted the pictures on Rage Quit Wire at the old Twitter machine.
Yeah.
If you guys are on the Twitter sphere, go ahead and hit us up.
Yeah. So this is our first Kingdom Death Monster experience. We are very excited for it. We're going to wrap up this podcast. We hope that you've enjoyed some of our thoughts on Kingdom Death. We hope for those people that are new to Kingdom Death that you're able to get some insight as far as preparing your games and preparing your groups. And we are also going to be sharing some of our thoughts as we move forward throughout the game. And so We're going to post this to the Facebook group. We're going to post this on Twitter and
On our Rage Quit Wire YouTube.
Our Rage Quit Wire YouTube.
And on iTunes.
And on iTunes. So please rate us. Please give us that thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. And also, please give us your feedback. We would love to be able to hear how your games are going and what your thoughts are. Because, man, we love to game, but I have a feeling that we got our work cut out for us.
Yeah,
with this
so
game.
I think that if you are a really hardcore player, like you love board games, you love RPGs, this game is going to be really cool for you because it's definitely challenging. And if you're a casual RPG board game guy like I am, I think it's also a really fun game where you can play something challenging. It's going to advance. It's going to feel like an RPG, but it doesn't have to because you don't have to have a religious group with this. Literally, you have this settlement, and a random person, like I could have my buddy from Kansas come out, and Eric could just hop right in the game, and he could just be another settler or
yeah,
a
we
survivor.
could just give them a character sheet.
Yeah, and or you can, put yours away for a while and just say, oh, you're in the settlement for a while. So I think that's a really cool mechanic because I think that's the downfall of RPGs is that a lot of times people don't have the time to commit one day a week or even one day a month can be tough for an RPG group. And I think this is perfect to solve that.
Yeah, I'm thinking that what we'll do is we'll probably set it up to where we either have our Kingdom Death Day or, once every week or once every 5 days, whatever it is, we say, hey, come on over for Kingdom Death. Whoever can make it, can make it. And there we go. And the cool effect of that is even though some people are not going to want to miss it because they don't want to miss the story, that's how real life works, right?
Yeah. That's how the settlement works probably in this game.
Yeah, the people went out on the hunt.
I know it, Chris.
They brought back the stories.
You got some kind of fever, man. You're just going to stay home today. Let Pete go out there and deal with this crazy-ass lion.
Yeah, you go get that wildebeest.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, yes, please subscribe. Please give us a rating. And we will be doing more episodes, not only about Kingdom Death, but we've also done a lot of episodes about Guild Ball, and we plan to keep doing that. And we really want to be able to give gamers a variety of experiences and share just what our experiences are in the gaming world.
Yeah, because I think it's good to just, share what you're finding in different games, and I think it encourages the growth of certain games and expanding your knowledge on these, because honestly, there's a lot of stuff that you can relate different games to. Like if you play other board games and if you play other, RPG games, this game's definitely gonna challenge you and I think only grow yourself in these games.
Yeah. One last thing, I almost forgot. I'm happy I didn't.
Okay. This is last thing.
This is the last thing. Is Black Friday's coming up. Kingdom Death is running sales. So for those that are looking to get a copy of Kingdom Death, I've heard they stopped taking pre-orders on their backer kit, and that they will have some available on Kingdom Death's actual website. They also usually run some pretty cool exclusives off of that website too. I know they did some for Halloween. So if you are interested in the game and you haven't gotten one yet, check out Kingdom Death's website on Black Friday. You might have some cool treats in store.
All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and sign off there. I'm Pete, giving you guys have a good day, evening, whatever you're having while you're listening to this.
All right, and this is Chris. We're out.